for the start of hour number 1 of The Line of Fire with Dr. Michael Brown. 1 minute from Mark. 1 minute. And stations now the final time check before the start of hour number 1 of The Line of Fire with Dr. Michael Brown. 30 seconds until hour number 1 from Mark. That was our final verbal time check for The Line of Fire with Dr. Michael Brown. We'll have a long tone at 10 seconds before, followed by a short one at 5 seconds. Have a great afternoon, everybody.
Some pastors in Canada have said enough is enough. Time to take a stand, regardless of cost or consequence.
It's time for The Line of Fire with your host, activist, author, international speaker, and theologian, Dr. Michael Brown, your voice of moral, cultural, and spiritual revolution. Michael Brown is the director of the Coalition of Conscience and president of Fire School of Ministry. Get into The Line of Fire now by calling 866-34-TRUTH. That's 866-34-TRUTH. Here again is Dr. Michael Brown.
Friends, I'm opening the phone lines right now, 866-348-7884. If you have any question of any kind on any subject under the sun, as long as it relates somehow to The Line of Fire, give me a call, 866-34-TRUTH. If you want to take issue with me on something, if you need clarification, by all means, give me a call. If it's appropriate for Christian radio, for public consumption, then it's not off limits here. Welcome, friends, to the broadcast. Michael Brown, so glad to be with you today. At the bottom of the hour, I'm going to bring on a pastor from Canada. He is part of a coalition of a couple of hundred pastors. Together, they have taken a stand against a sexual education curriculum in Canada. They are speaking up and speaking out, which is not an easy thing to do in Canada today. So we'll hear from them. It'll encourage you in America and in other nations where you are listening and viewing as well. Once more, the number 866-348-7884. Before we go to the phones, I want to give you a short message of encouragement. If you're listening, give me your best ear. If you're watching, look at me right now. Let's make eye contact. There we go. Don't be distracted. Yeah. Be encouraged. Be encouraged. I'll say it once more. As Paul wrote to the Philippians once and again and said, rejoice, rejoice, rejoice. I'll say it again. Be encouraged. You say, how can I be encouraged when the world is falling around, collapsing all around me? How can I be encouraged when we're in such a mess? How can I be encouraged when America is so divided? And maybe your own situation, how can I be encouraged when our finances are a mess and we're going to go bankrupt? How can I be encouraged when our child is sick, is not getting better, and the doctors don't know what to do? How can I be encouraged when we just went through a split in our church? How can I be encouraged when my parents just got in a car wreck? There's a lot of hardship, and there's a lot of pain, and there's a lot of suffering, and there's a lot of sin. There are a whole lot of problems in this world. But I say to you from the heart, if you know the Lord, if Jesus is your Savior and your Lord and your Redeemer, be encouraged. God has not fallen asleep. God is not slumbering. God is not lacking in diligence. God has not forgotten you. He said to Israel many centuries ago, can a mother forget her own nursing child? And you'd think the answer would be, no, mother wouldn't forget her nursing child. And God said, yes, even she can forget, but I won't forget you. Speaking to Zion, Jerusalem, a promise to Israel. How much more a promise to us through the cross? Look, all I need to know is that God is with me and God is for me. That's all I need to know. It doesn't matter how messed up things are around me. It doesn't matter how many people hate me. It doesn't matter how many difficulties I'm in the midst of. If I know I'm in right relationship with God, that I'm seeking to honor him and do his will, then whatever comes my way, I'm encouraged because God's with me and God's for me. And therefore, I have the wind at my back. The wind is in my sails. Therefore, I have everything I need to do the work of God and for him to be glorified in me. If you know the Lord, be encouraged. Jesus is Lord. All authority in heaven and earth still belongs to him. It doesn't belong to the media. It doesn't belong to the army. It doesn't belong to the internet. It doesn't belong to the president. It doesn't belong to a nation. It belongs to him. That has not changed. Be encouraged. 866-34-TRUTH. And with that, we go to the phones. We'll start in California with Dina. Welcome to the Line of Fire. Hello? Are you there? Gone. Our very first caller. Gone. Isn't that sad? We got a bunch of other calls on the screen I'll get to in a moment. Last night, President Trump at a big rally mocked, I believe was mocked is the right way to say it, Professor Christine Blasey Ford's testimony. And she didn't remember this. I remember she had one beer. She didn't remember that. She didn't remember this. And, they're just trying to character assassinate Brett Kavanaugh. Now, maybe he got more intel from the FBI and they said there's no verification of these charges. And now he's going to lash out. And he's obviously speaking for what a lot of people feel. Others would say, well, how is any other woman ever going to come forward after what he just did? Well, if you're lying, let's say she was lying. Maybe it's not appropriate for the president of the United States to mock her, but if she was willfully lying under oath and perjured herself in front of a international audience in order to destroy a man, this is a big if, then she should be prosecuted. She should be prosecuted for what she did, and she should suffer the full penalty of the law. If this is what she generally believes and remembers, then it's inappropriate for someone to mock her, especially the president. But things continue to heat up, which means we better pray. We need to be on our knees and praying for our nation as we continue to get torn apart by the seams. And don't allow politics to divide your family. Do your best to center on things that unify and then have your differences where you do. 866-34-TRUTH. Let's go to Seagrove, North Carolina. Todd, welcome to the Line of Fire.
Thank you, Dr. Brown. My question is having to do with a conversation that the Pharisees had with John the Baptist in John chapter 1. I was thinking about him baptizing, and they were asking him about, why are you baptizing if you are not the Christ or that prophet? And I was just curious to find out why the early Jewish authorities believed that the Messiah would baptize.
Yeah, it's an interesting question. I'm not aware of a Jewish tradition that the Messiah would be involved in immersing people, or that Elijah or expected prophet would be involved in it. What I take it as is this, that you constantly have the battle between Jesus and the religious authorities, between John the Immerser and the religious authorities. So they're basically saying, who are you? Who are you? You're preparing the way for the coming of the Messiah. Are you the Messiah? By what authority are you immersing people? Are you the Messiah? No, I'm not claiming to be the Messiah. Are you Elijah? I'm not claiming to be Elijah. Are you this great prophet? I'm not claiming to be any of it. Well, then who gives you the authority to baptize? So it's not that these figures were necessarily associated with immersion, to my knowledge, but rather that this was simply their way of challenging the authority. Who in the world do you think you are? You're not ordained. You're not recognized by us. You're not anybody, to put it in contemporary terms. So who are you? That's what I take it to mean. I don't think there was a specific connection between the Messiah or Elijah or an end-time prophet who would be involved in immersing people. Rather, it was a challenge to his authority as a religious nobody in their eyes, as best as I can understand. But thanks. It's a very relevant question, as your questions always are. Thanks, Todd.
Thank you.
All right. 866-34-TRUTH. If you're just tuning in, taking all kinds of questions in the first half hour, then a special guest from Canada. You'll be edified, encouraged when you hear from him a little later in the show. We go to Clemens, North Carolina. Ellen, welcome to the Line of Fire.
Hello, Dr. Brown.
Hey.
I have a question about during the time of Abraham and Sarah, when they waited so long for their child from God, Sarah had Abraham, and I guess my standard today, or our standard today, commit adultery with Hagar. Was adoption not a thing that they did during that time? Was it looked upon badly?
Yeah, well, first thing, it would not be Abraham's physical seed, and all the promises were to his physical seed. So it wasn't just a matter of them having a child, but it was a matter of it being Abraham's actual seed. So it had to be someone produced from him. You did have polygamy, though, in the ancient world. So for Sarah to give her servant to Abraham as a wife, that was common. Polygamy was common, and so Abraham was a polygamist then, or a bigamist, with two wives. So that was common. But the issue wasn't whether adoption was possible or feasible, but rather that would not fulfill the promise that it was going to be his seed, his physical offspring from his loins, to whom the promises were made.
I see. I was thinking in terms of, how God wouldn't bless, Abraham. I didn't think of the polygamy,
Yeah. So the issue was it had to come through his seed. So absolutely.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you so much, Dr. Brown.
Yeah, you bet. Thank you. Thanks for
Bye-bye.
asking. All right, 866-34-TRUTH. Let's try to reconnect with, is it Dina or Dinah in California?
This is, hello?
All right, go ahead. You're on the air.
Yeah. My question is, where do you see the Trinity in the Old Testament?
Mm-hmm.
And why is it that in the New Testament, Jesus is mostly referred to as Lord rather than God? And whenever God is mentioned, it's mostly referring to God the Father.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah. And for the Holy Spirit, why is it that we don't really talk much about him as a person?